Hello Manchester City fans, welcome to this Talking City podcast with me, Sam Hutchison and Simon Bajkowski. How are you, Simon, today?
Yeah, very well. As good as the weather.
And today we're going to be talking about the going-ons at City, then we'll preview Brighton, and then finally we'll listen to Pep Guardiola's pre-match press conference. But there is some sombre news to start this day, I'm afraid, City fans. We have bade farewell to Manchester City legend Francis Lee this week. Simon, what sort of legacy does he leave behind at Man City?
Huge legacy, really. If you think about the statues that are outside the Etihad, you've got Vincent Kompany, you've got Sergio Aguero, and you've got David Silva, three kind of legends of the modern day Manchester City. And very soon, outside the stadium, there will be a statue with Francis Lee, Colin Bell, and Mike Summerby to mark, a trio of great footballers in a great footballing team who gave City one of their greatest ever periods. I think there's kind of like a tendency to undersell City's history because they went down to the third division for a year in the 90s, and it is a great comeback story. But to focus on like City being a third division team would be to undersell the long and rich kind of history they've had as a club, which included bringing Franny Lee into the City team with Joe Mercer and Malcolm Allison in the late 60s that sort of allowed him to spearhead the attack with Summerby and Bell, and won City the title, won them their European Cup Winners' Cup as well as an FA Cup and League Cup. But until this summer, Francis Lee scored the winning goal in the European final for City. So Rodri joins Franny Lee as players to have scored the winner in a European final. So an immense history, kind of a larger than life character. He wasn't always popular. He made a fair few decisions when he came back as chairman in the 90s that didn't go down so well. But even people who disagreed with his decisions would say that he always had a love for City at the heart of every decision he made. And he's played for, a number of other clubs. Bolton, Derby, won the league with Derby when he came back to City when he wasn't too happy about being sold. And England, of course, so he has got a history with other clubs and a big history with other clubs, but he is kind of most associated with City because that felt like his home. And funeral was on Thursday at Manchester Cathedral, kind of a fitting tribute to him, and there will be more tributes at the game to him on Saturday against Brighton. And
if you do want to check out any footage from that funeral, we do have it available on the Manchester Evening News now. So you mentioned there that he had a really glittering career for England. I've just got it up here. He scored 10 goals in 27 appearances when appearances weren't quite as common back in those days as they are now for England internationals. But England were on show this week again. It was a really impressive performance, I thought. I just want to touch on that. City had 4 players start the game in Kyle Walker, John Stones, Calvin Phillips and Phil Foden. Yeah. Who really impressed you from that game? Not especially even City.
The sort of the link up for Foden, Bellingham and Rashford for that goal was very special. Kind of, I love Bellingham and he's a fantastic player. I feel like we're almost at kind of overhyped stage with Bellingham where like that goal was made to be all about him, and he had an important part, but the goal doesn't happen without Foden's work on the edge of his own box, and it also doesn't happen without Rashford kind of carrying the ball a long way and making a lot of decisions before finishing well. So, there was plenty to that. It was a good performance, and that is more like the team that you would probably expect to see at the Euros than the one that played against Australia, with the sort of big question mark that we spoke about Calvin Phillips, who then talks about his future again and says, maybe I will have to get more game time, which, I don't really know, sort of, he was very strong in summer saying he wants to stay, fine, fair enough. I don't really know what's changed for him. Like, I don't know that anything has changed at City, so it's almost like the change has just come from Phillips, where he wasn't. It's the same picture for Phillips now that it was in summer when he said he would stay. So it's just whether he thought he would get in, and now has decided that he hasn't. But if he wants to go in January to get more game time, he needs to line up a move now. Because if he wants to go, he should be going on the first day of the January window, as soon as it opens, so that he can play for as much time as possible before the Euros and stay in the team. Like, he has been at City long enough to know that if a player wants to leave, they need to bring an offer to the club and they will accept it or not. But, if Phillips doesn't want to be at City beyond January, there's no excuse for him not lining up a move now so he can move straight away.
I mean, I was going to come on to that. Where do you think's a realistic sort of place for him to end up? Because he has got a really good bit of pedigree from his time at Leeds, at the very least.
Yeah, and he's still important to England. Southgate was almost kind of making the suggestion that maybe this amount of game time is fine for him because he's still helping England. So, yeah, I mean, Newcastle wanted him in summer and may have a need for their midfield to be strengthened. There were a lot of clubs interested in summer, and there were also kind of, his team weren't naive enough to blindly think that he was definitely staying at City no matter what. So they were also kind of putting out some interested feelers towards the end of the window. So I don't think it should be a problem for him to move. Certainly on loan, it will. I wouldn't expect City to kick up a fuss over whether it's a loan or a permanent, but I would probably expect City to want to replace him, even if he's not contributing that much at the minute. That's not kind of information I've got. That's just top of my head what I would expect. But I wouldn't expect City to want their squad to get even smaller. So again, if he does want to leave, City would want to know in advance so that they can plan to bring someone in. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was kind of a loan in January with maybe a option for a permanent deal.
I mean, like you say there, City squad is looking a little bit thin, so a replacement is probably needed if City lose anybody in January, really. Yeah. There is, we're seeing a lot of younger players on the bench. We're seeing a lot less experience on the bench than maybe we'd expect. And, like you say, there is probably, even if he does go out on loan, there is probably a need to replace him pretty quickly in the January transfer window. Yeah. John Stones made his return for England. He hasn't returned for City yet, but do we think he's back fully fit, or do we think that was more out of necessity that he is England's best centre-half?
I mean, he must be closer to fully fit than he was. I think it is just managing his fitness with Stones. Everyone knows how good he is when he's at his peak. Even not at his peak, he can still come in and help and do a job for City. He came off the bench at Arsenal when it was 0-0. So I think we will see a lot more of him over this next month, but it is just a question of sort of how long he can keep that fitness for, because he's not been fit all season, really.
And then Kyle Walker partnered. He was on the right of defence whilst John Stones was at left centre-half. Is Kyle Walker England's best right-back, do you think, going right now and probably going into the Euros? Because there's a lot of competition there. It's probably the most stacked area of the England squad. Is Kyle Walker that best option for Southgate on that right side of defence?
It feels like he is. And there definitely were times where he wasn't. But in terms of kind of like Reece James has had a lot of injury problems. Trent Alexander-Arnold has kind of been found out defensively as a right back to the extent that he's playing more games in midfield for Liverpool and England. I think, Kieran Trippier is someone who, he's a great player and also has kind of a lot of credit in the bank with Southgate. So you could sort of see occasions where you might want to play Trippier over Walker, or you might want to play Walker inside and Trippier outside of him. But Walker is certainly enjoying a real purple patch at the minute, and now he's kind of, you would think, an essential pick for the squad where maybe he wasn't a year ago or so.
And, I mean, I think the star man on that night from City's contingent at the very least was Phil Foden. You mentioned him there where you were talking about Bellingham. I think Phil Foden's really found a home for himself in that England squad that maybe wasn't there in previous major tournaments. You know, he's always been sort of competing to be playing off the right. I think Saka would probably still start off the right, but I think Foden's so versatile across pretty much that front four that I think he could pretty much play anywhere and fill in any gap that is left by, say, an injury closer to the tournament. And he's pretty capable.
And I think that is kind of an important point because, you know, you do get injuries cropping up and you can't always play sort of the best 11 on the pitch. Now, you would like to think that Foden would make a best England 11 whatever, but with Bellingham now kind of more as a 10, and if you want to play Saka and Rashford or Saka and Grealish, then maybe there isn't. But again, it's just about who's being in form and kind of fit at the right time. And Foden had a lot of time last season where he wasn't injured or wasn't in form. I remember speaking to him after the last Premier League game of the season, actually at Brentford, where he'd played himself into form, but he still wasn't quite what you call the best 11. And he said, like, you know, I hope I've put myself in contention. And he didn't start the FA Cup final, he didn't start the Champions League final, but then he was called upon to replace De Bruyne after 25 minutes in Istanbul and came on and did really well and played an important part. So, you know, I would be surprised if Foden didn't play an important role for England at the Euros, kind of however many times he starts or where he starts.
And obviously it's not the only news that England have been playing over this international break. There was reports that Messi had won his 8th Ballon d'Or ahead of Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
Do we think that's fair? Because, let's be real, Messi disappeared to America halfway through the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because, you know, players do care about individual awards. I think the best way, I think international competitions carry a lot of clout, and, you know, the story of Messi finally completing his journey with Argentina and winning the World Cup as he did is kind of a great one that does mask a pretty bang average year at club level. Haaland has done amazing and has probably been the best footballer on the planet in terms of the year. I sort of think maybe 10 years down the line, Haaland will be in a position where he's winning it ahead of a 23-year-old who's had a better year, but maybe Haaland kind of has earned that kind of legacy. So, yeah, it is what it is. Whoever wins, I don't think there can be two complaints because it's, I don't know. I find it hard to get excited about these awards.
Yeah. I mean, do you think Haaland's international allegiances sort of act against him in that sort of sense? Because, like you say, if he had been at the World Cup, he probably would have scored a couple of goals at the very least.
Yeah.
That looks a lot better as a overall package of the year.
Yeah, I think so. But even if he had, and if he'd scored a few goals, you know, Norway are never going to be competing to win World Cups, I don't think, while Haaland is playing. So it's kind of more about, can he get to a World Cup with them? Can he sort of, you know, get them to the knockout stage and maybe a surprise run? But it's if Haaland keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to win multiple Ballon d'Ors.
Yeah, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? And we do need him to get back into form for City. He has, like we've touched on it a lot in recent podcasts.
Yeah.
He's not quite hit the levels of last season, whilst not really, he's still scoring loads of goals, but he's not really quite hit those levels of last season. We need him to start hitting the back of the net.
Yeah, again, it's I find it hard to criticise him too deeply because, you know, he can score 3 in any game And if he scores 3 on Saturday, then loads of analysis of why he's out of form quickly looks a bit redundant. So, he scored 2 great goals, or 2 goals in the international break. One of them was very good. So I think he will be fine. And Brighton are not a team who have been able to keep many clean sheets recently, and are very forward thinking under Roberto De Zerbi. So I would expect Haaland to get probably more chances in this Brighton game than he's had for a good while in a City shirt.
I mean, he is here. I mean, I'm looking at XG stats on the fly here. Man City, by expected goals, are second in the Premier League. That is 1 place off where they are in reality. Yeah. So you'd expect more of these chances that City create, because that's really where the key is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'd expect him to be starting.
But also, I think Haaland is 2 or 3 goals ahead in the Golden Boot. Yeah. So
how many has he got in the league?
He's got
this
8.
Season?
8 and 8.
Well, he's only underperforming that by 0.66.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Is he really having bad form, or is he just not scoring hat-tricks every week and that's being picked up by the media?
Yeah. I mean, he should have scored more goals this season, absolutely, but he will score a lot of goals. That's the thing.
Right, so that brings part 1 to an end. In part 2, we are going to preview this weekend's clash against Brighton. Welcome back, City fans, to part 2 of the Talking City podcast. We are going to discuss this Brighton game. It's really been built up as this sort of real test, but I've just got some stats here. You know, City have only ever lost once to Brighton in the Premier League. Brighton have never won an away league game at Man City in their history. Is it really what all it's been built up to be?
I think Brighton, and certainly Roberto De Zerbi's Brighton, are a horrible team to face. They don't care about reputation. They don't care about these past stats or whatever. They don't care about what game you want to play. They impose as much as they can their football on the game, and you have to deal with it. You know, it's been really refreshing to watch someone try something different, and someone who can, you know, come in instantly and sort of upset the established clubs. You know, I think Graham Potter's a terrific coach, and I think he did really well at Brighton. But it always, you know, I remember they came to Brighton and they came to City, and Guardiola said afterwards, you know, that is the best display from an opposition team I've seen. And City, they'd either won 4-0 or 5-0, and it was like, right, it might be a great display, but they've got battered. Whereas De Zerbi has been able to sort of end the chronic Brighton problem of kind of never taking their chances, and also get results against big teams. And, you know, they won. Did they beat United at Old Trafford recently? They drew against Liverpool recently. So they're able to get results against the best teams in the country, and they will be a real challenge for a City defence who haven't really been on it for the last month or so, or the last 6 weeks. So if City aren't careful, then Brighton probably will punish them, because that is what they tend to do under De Zerbi.
I mean, Brighton's games are always entertaining. They are the most goals in their games in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Do we think this is going to be a really high-scoring game? Because Brighton, by the looks of things this season so far, aren't really that great at defending, but are really fantastic at attacking. You know, we've got real outliers on here. 6-1 loss to Aston Villa, which you wouldn't really expect, but then a 2-2 draw with Liverpool. You don't really know what you're coming to get from De Zerbi's Brighton, do you?
No. They've been very, very good, apart from when they've been very bad, like at Villa. And West Ham beat them as well, I think, at home. So I think we should expect goals. Like, it might be 0-0, but I would be very, very surprised if it's 0-0 because nothing about this game screams 0-0. You've got two coaches who want to try and win the game and want to try and score goals to win the game. And you've got two defences who aren't great at the minute. You know, City haven't been conceding many goals, but they've probably been conceding more than they should. And they've certainly been losing more control of games than they would like. So Brighton are a team that can capitalise on that in an instant and have players who can score a lot of goals. You know, they met towards the end of last season and just after City had won the league and then Ciso scored from nowhere. Like, I think it won goal of the season. It was like a phenomenal strike, and they can't count on him on Saturday, but they seem to have an endless supply of sort of brilliant young players who can fill that void and cause City problems.
And like you say, and Brighton won't have Enciso this Saturday. City will be strengthened by the return of Rodri. Does he come straight back in?
I think he does, yeah. I'm sure Guardiola would love to make a point about, you know, if you get sent off, you can't come straight back into my team. But I think we've seen how important he is and how sort of City struggle without him and don't seem to have a ready-made replacement. So I think he comes straight back in, and you would like to think with a point to prove and to, you know, to his teammates that he owes them a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a 9 out of 10 performance like it usually is in these big games. The last time City lost 3 league games in a row was under Pellegrini. Mm-hmm. Pep Guardiola's only ever done it once in his entire career, and that was Bayern Munich. Is this a real disaster if City lose this game, or is it just one of those hurdles you've got to get over?
It is just one of those hurdles. I think, you know, it would be one for the statisticians to say, you know, first time he's ever done it. And, you know, I'd have to check, but I wouldn't be surprised if those 3 losses at Bayern were kind of after they'd won the league. You know, where they've already kind of done the hard work. Guardiola said when they'd lost to Newcastle and Wolves and then they beat Leipzig, and he said, you know, even if we'd lost here, I wouldn't have been too bothered. And if they win on Saturday, they go top of the league. So as much as we've kind of been chewing them out for 2 weeks, like, they're still in a very good position. And yeah, if they lose, it is disappointing. Like, I think they've won every game this calendar year at home, so it would be a real turn up if they lost. But it would go down as a loss to a very good team, and it wouldn't kind of. I think when they lose, the rest of the league sees, oh, they can be got at. But whether the rest of the league are good enough to kind of take advantage of that over 38 games is something they've not been able to do for like 4 of the past 5.
I mean, a loss would leave Man City quite noticeably behind Spurs and Arsenal. Say if one of those gets a win, that would be 5 points.
Yeah.
We have seen City come back from bigger deficits before. Yeah. Does it really matter? Or
well,
at this point of the season, is it not?
Yeah, well, that's it. You know, they very much remember being 8 points behind in February to an Arsenal team that had 5-6 months of like really good results behind them. So I think these players are at the stage where they've seen it all before and done it all before, and kind of lest we forget as well, Guardiola was kind of suggesting after the Arsenal game that maybe they need to be behind, maybe they need that bit of spark to motivate him, because it is very hard when you're in September, October to kind of think, oh, this is a must-win game.
Yeah, I mean, is an expectation this season that City win the league again? What would be a realistic expectation? Because, you know, we all want City treble.
Yeah.
Do we think, because the double treble's not really that likely, do we think a realistic expectation would be a league and then another cup? Do we think a back-to-back Champions Leagues is realistic at this point?
I think they remain favourites for the league title, and they remain one of the big favourites for the Champions League. I think they've got to be looking to win at least one of those 2 this year. I think if they don't win the league or the Champions League, it would have to be regarded as a disappointing season. whether they're at the stage where, not winning the league, but winning the Champions League is seen as a success. I'm not sure. But they have kind of turned their attention towards European success more so than domestic success as kind of a club. And also the supporters are more in tune to the Champions League now. So, but the thing is, it's very difficult to not play well in the Premier League and win the Champions League. Because if you're not playing well enough to win games every Saturday, then why should you beat the best teams in Europe on a Wednesday? So the aim always has to be to win the Premier League, and then everything else kind of comes from there.
And just to finish off this part, a starting 11 prediction for this Brighton game. Can we see any turn-ups for the Bucks, or do we think it'll be a pretty straightforward, write it down on paper and already chosen his...
I think it would be pretty as expected. The only kind of outlier would be Julian Alvarez, so whether he is fit enough to play a part after being, I think he was in Peru the early hours of Wednesday played 80 minutes for Argentina. So, when City were at West Ham, a Saturday 3:00 kickoff after the September international break, and Alvarez started, but after the game, Guardiola said we didn't really expect him to start, and we sort of monitored him really closely, and it was him that said, no, I'm good enough to play, and so he started and played very well. But you can't expect just because he's done it once he'll do it again, and so you might want to take less of a risk with that as well if they've got more players fit in those positions, which they have. So you wonder if Alvarez might be this might be a time to leave him on the bench and then bring him back in for the Champions League in midweek.
So, let's go 1 through 11 if we can.
Yeah, so Ederson, of course, and then probably Walker, Akanji, Diaz, Ake.
No Gvardiol.
No, I sort of see Brighton as being kind of I know Guardiola will want to win away at Young Boys, but that is on paper an easier game, and also Guardiola more used to playing Champions League than
Premier League.
Premier League, yeah. So kind of get your most experienced Premier League 11, and that would probably be Rodri, and then maybe Kovacic and Foden, Silva, Grealish and Haaland. Yeah,
a strong lineup, even with missing Julian Alvarez, who did, just checking here, did play 78 minutes in Peru.
Yeah.
Which is never a nice game, as we know. But Manchester City fans, thank you for listening to this episode of the Talking City podcast. We are now going to listen to Pep Guardiola's press conference, which, Simon, you're about to shoot off to. Yeah. And we will join you again on Monday. But thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, guys. Hope you're well. Same process as ever. Mics on either side. Just raise your hand to let us know you'd like to ask a question. We'll come to as many of you as possible. We'll start with Ian, please.
Hello, Pep. Can I ask first how all your players have come back from international duty? Are they okay? Any problems, injuries?
Any problems, except Kevin.
Of course. Yeah. Do you know an update on when we can expect him back?
No. I don't know.
Facing Brighton, you've been extremely complimentary about them and about Roberto De Zerbi in the past as well. Is this the best version of Brighton that you've ever faced, you feel?
Last season was really, really good too. That's why I qualified for European competitions. And for some decisions against them in the last games could fight for being Champions League. And they continue in the same level.
When you come up against a team that plays in a similar way to you, how much more do you enjoy those games as opposed to trying to break down an opponent, which seems to be the case most weeks?
No, we don't play similar way like them. They are unique for the way they play. But we have some patterns, like we are aggressive without the ball and high pressing, and we want the ball like they want it. But the way they play is just they do it.
Mike?
What is it about Roberto De Zerbi that you like, Pep?
He's a handsome guy. No, I don't know. I like it. I think I admire him for the fact that it doesn't matter the team he plays. He proves that you don't have to be in a top clubs with the top exceptional players to make your team play in the way you like to play. So he came from a country like in Italy, like the way he plays is a little bit countercultural. And it doesn't matter what happened, playing Sassuolo and the teams that not maybe considering the top ones, was able, it doesn't matter, San Siro, Turin, Napoli. And I have the ball, I'm going to play. And of course, after when the Shakhtar Donetsk, that was interrupted for the fact, unfortunately, for the war in Ukraine. And with, it was a Shakhtar have to win, you know that? And it was the same in Brighton, the same. So, listen, I'm a spectator mainly as a manager, and I enjoy a lot watching his teams playing. So I learn, I like it, and everything he does makes sense. So, and it's not a surprise the success his team has, because he's playing deservedly. So even when he lost 6-1 against Aston Villa, he plays his own style. It doesn't matter after transitions and deflections, and Aston Villa, they are especially this top side this season for the quality of the manager and the players they have. But they do whatever it doesn't matter. So, and tomorrow will be the example. So it will be one of the toughest tests we have of the season. And we're going to try and go for it.
You said that he's proven himself not at a top club at the minute. Do you think one day he will be at one of the biggest clubs, whether that's here or elsewhere?
He's converting Brighton in a top club. Yeah, so Caicedo and McAllister gone. So Chelsea player, Colwill, gone and continue to play in a good level. So that means the patterns are there, and the simple things, they do it perfectly, and they have exceptional players, of course, but I had the feeling with them, the players are better.
One last one for me, that in the international break, Calvin Phillips said that if he wants to be at Euro 2024, he may have to leave in January. Is that a conversation you've had with him? Is that a thought you share?
No. International transfer window is over, summer. Now we are here together. When we need a game like transitions, or game like we need something like a little bit chaos or whatever, Calvin is perfect. And for something you need to do, so at that point today I see one or two players that can do better. That's as simple as that. There is no more than that. But until winter time, he will be here. He's here. And after, I don't know what happened with Calvin, with me, or any player. So when the transfer is open, nobody knows.
Fred?
Hi, Pep. Still on Brighton, you said earlier this year that they had the best build-up in the world. I don't know if you still think the same.
Yeah.
And how do you mark that?
So difficult. Always they find the right man. It depends on the movements you do. They find the right man in the right position to have the man free. That's why I see the football in this way. So it depends how you attack. Tell me how you're going to defend me, and after I'm going to tell you how we're going to attack. It's not different if the winger jump to central defender or striker jump a central defender. So your pattern, your movement has to be completely different. And they read perfectly this kind of movement, because everyone in his positional game. And it's a team like plays so slow, and after they're so quick, like a counterattack. So having the ball, play the counterattack after being the game so slow. They play perfectly with the two rhythms. And that's why the success. So it doesn't matter who he plays, always had the feeling that he controls the game. After they can lose the game, yeah, of course. But he can do it.
And I know you're not a big fan of individual awards in football, but in 10 days we have the Ballon d'Or and two incredible stories at least. Messi with Argentina, Haaland here with the treble. If you had a vote, who would you vote for?
You are so funny. Always I said that the Ballon d'Or had to be two sections. One for Messi. Done. And after look for the other one. So Halle should be win. Yes or yes. So we won the treble because scored 50, million goals. But of course, Messi, if you tell me the worst season of Messi is the best for the rest of the players. So both deserve it. So what can I say? So egoistically, I would say that I want Erling because he helped us, to achieve what we achieve. I would love it, But until it's unfair if Leo wins. They won the World Cup, so. But it's nice that many players for Man City will be there for the first time for many years, and being the challenging for these players won the trophies. That make us so proud for our organization, for all of us.
Hi, Pep. In midweek, Gareth Southgate was grateful for the cooperation that Manchester City yourselves showed with England about John Stones in particular, allowing him to play an hour against Italy. Do you feel the benefits now of Stones coming back, having got those minutes under his belt and played in such an important game for England?
Because he's not injured. We were a little bit concerned. We spoke with Gareth. We have an incredible relation. Chicky spoke with him. After the game, we text Gareth to me, and I reply him. So we were concerned because John didn't play 1 minute in the last 2 months. He just recovered in timing, go to the national team. You never know what's going to happen. We didn't want because John had been an important figure for last season, for all the years, but especially last season. And we could not use it. But of course, it's perfect for us. He got minutes for the rhythm, but what happened if he's injured? This was our concern. We transmit that and said, no, we're going to take care of him. We're going to minutes, not 19. He has done it, so. We want the players go to the national team from UK or from the other countries. It's Brazil, Argentina, Spain, whatever. So Portugal, Croatia. So it's perfect for them. They love to play for their country. So I understand it. I will never say don't go there. But always they have to understand us, when one player didn't play 1 minute with us, or few minutes this season, for the last month, 2 months, didn't play one, we were a little bit concerned, but fortunately, everything was right and is ready for next games.
And because of the congested schedule, the number of games you have, internationally, all the players are having to play at the moment, is that trust between club and country the most important thing for you moving forward? You have to have that trust.
Absolutely. I think when we can talk our thoughts about anything about the managers for national teams or relation with the sport directors of national team, sport director, it's perfect. Yeah, it should be more quite often. It should be more conversations because maybe they can listen. Oh, this type of player never used this type of training because with the gym, for example, it's not good for our physio set. They know them for many years. This type of exercises. It's always at the end we want both the benefit for the player. It's not, we don't want it. Always the target, national team ourselves, is the player be fit and as they perform as highest level with us and with the national teams. And as much they talk, much better will be.
Hi, Pep. Just on the 2 games you lost, obviously Rodri wasn't playing. How important is it to have him back now?
So important.
Is there any concern at all that opponents will look at how Rodri got sent off in that game and think there's a way they can target him there to rile him, or are you convinced he'll have learned from that?
He will learn. He's sent off, but because sent off, there is 2 faults for Rodri that the referee didn't apply the rule. Without that, he's not sent off. It's so scandalous the fault he got, and he was not punished. And after, Rodri has to learn. Even the mistakes that we do, and they do, we have to control emotions, stand up, and go. But I'm pretty sure he will learn.
So with that, please, for the embargo.
Hi, Pep. Can I ask about your former club Barcelona and the Negreira scandal? What was your initial reaction to those reports coming out? And when you were at the club, did you see
when will be the sentence, I will give you my opinion. And after now, President Laporta and all the presidents are innocent of all the people saying about Barcelona. Barcelona is innocent. President Laporta is innocent, and the opposite is proven. So wait and see, and after we see.
And can I ask, when you were at the club, did you see any foul play or referee reports that might suggest there was
Sorry?
any wrongdoing?
Sorry?
When you were at the club, did you see any sort of referee reports that might suggest there was any wrongdoing at all or not?
You were so young. You didn't see this team how good play football, my friend. It wasn't a scandal the way we playing. We won all the titles because we were much better than the opponent. But you were so young. I will send you videos to see.